Hello and welcome to another video where we talk about my favourite deck, and it's really awesome and I'm really grateful to see it back. Again, if you didn't watch the other video where I went over Voidrix's deck, he sort of set the blueprint out for how we get to play it in set 10 and how it's very viable and it works and it's can put results in. Over the weekend I saw it in different places get top cuts and winner cases and things like that, and it's apparently doing well at people's locals and stuff, which is awesome to see. Just really grateful, and it was really nice everyone's messaged out and just said they're really happy to play Kiwi again. So in this video, this is like covering my build that I went. So like I say, Voidrix really set the blueprint on it, and I think his build is great, and of course whatever he posts on Dreamborn and places like that, definitely worth checking out as well. I think he has a very good thought process and eye for how the deck should be operating, and I went and took that, and of course I think he had thoughts about updating his list from the Axion run he had, and I did as well. So I went in this direction and I've changed a few cards around, put some things in, and I've kind of figured out a bit of a game plan. I think the next few videos over the channel will probably be evolving around going through all of the stages of the deck. This will be a bit of a matchup guide, how I'm playing it right now if you want to pick up and start playing, but we're going to be testing, we're going to still be trying new cards and putting things in. Again, personally, I work full time and I have other things going on in my life. I can't dedicate it all to Lorcana, but anytime I can dedicate, I do, and then I will work on Kiwi and try and make it a bit better, and work on just presenting and doing videos like I do every day. But yeah, all of that blab apart, I just wanted to say that this is not the perfect list. If you follow my Dreamborn, it will still be changing and stuff like that, but this video should be a good stepping stone, a good starting point for if you want to just pick up Kiwi and start playing it in set 10. So we'll cover it right now, and yep, this is the cards that I sort of decided to go for. There's a few that I said were very good in the last video. Like I said, the Sultan, who was a 1-drop 2-quester, was very good. I think he's not bad, but to be honest with you, there was a lot of games where I wish I just didn't see him. He does not feel the same way that Daisy does. If you draw a Daisy late game, you can play it and it's still pretty good value. It's a 1/4 that quests for 2. That's pretty nice. But in our deck, drawing a 1/1 later on in the game feels horrible, and he's not inkable, so if you have him in your hand, you're likely going to play him turn 1. Turn him sideways and get taken out by a palace guard, and it never feels pretty great. So instead I opted to put some Captain Hooks in there, a few more changes in there of like Lexington as well, and I'll just cover the deck and the reason why each card, or why the cards are in here. We're going to go for a mulligan, we're going to mention a few matchups as well that I've managed to go through. But yeah, starting out, I put Captain Hooks in there. Basically, on the play, you're very fast, you're very quick, you put ward on everything. That's pretty great. You will go into some matchups, things like dogs, things like purple steel, where you just need to fight back a little bit. You need to take something off their board. You need to make it so that your lore is more than theirs. And if you can have a 1-drop that trades up with a 2-drop, or, just putting that 1-drop down threatens them and means their 1-drop can't quest without being taken out, that's pretty powerful for you, pretty good. He's also inkable, so the majority of the time you can just put him into the ink core and he's gone. Another card as well I wanted to note is Lexington that I put in there. Before, if you look at Voidrix's build, he had a 2/3 Zeus. I think someone as well on the comments as well said that try Lexington. So shout out to whoever that was. Definitely Lexington just fits perfectly in this deck. I think maybe he could be a 3x or a 4x, and the whole point and reason why I've got him in the deck is on the play I don't really want to see him too much. I don't really like using him on the play, but on the draw, when I'm already behind and they're setting the law, they're already racing ahead. If I play it down, it means, if you quest with your genie, I can take it out. I've got a strength singer. I'm going to trade out with all of your 1/2s, and I don't even mind trading 1-for-1 with your 3/3 if you want to play a Lexington as well. Not bad there. Just all round good statted body. But besides that, everything else seems pretty standard, what you're going to be seeing with Kiwi in set 10. So the idea of the deck is you want to be playing that classic sort of Kiwi curve. You want to be getting that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1-drop, whichever one it is, doesn't really matter, just putting something on board the same way we used to, where we put a Mickey Mouse or whatever. We just wanted a character on the board into a 2-drop. I'd say preferably Ichabod or Crane, and then into some of the Sapphire matchups, possibly Nala, because you can just zoom ahead. But Ichabod Crane can fall into this different line and this different play pattern that you can do with the deck. But yeah, into Alice, on the play, like I say, on the play, you want a good character, just quest, give your bodyguard character ward, and then on the draw you might want to have one of these more bigger bodies like John Silver or Lexington, just to get a good trade going, get some presence on the board. And if it's against a Sapphire deck where they're not committing much to the board, like Sapphire Steel or Green Blue, you can always just go for your on the play aggressive line on the draw. You can just curve out to Nala, Alice, bodyguard quest out for a ton of lore and just probably win the game off that. So those are your two options really, and that's sort of the classic thing, you know, 1, 2, 3, and then that 4 would like it to be one of the bodyguards. I think we before had Pluto at a 3x, but now I'd put it as a 4x because basically I just always want to be seeing that bodyguard on 4. Whenever I have to play a 3-drop or something on the draw, it can feel kind of rough. Not on the draw, just in general on turn 4, when I see one of those characters and I'm having to play like double Alice on 4, it never feels amazing. It doesn't feel terrible. It feels like I can still win the game, but I'd prefer to be drawing a bodyguard, give it ward, and then quest for a bunch of lore, make them trade in, quest for more lore, and keep putting the pressure on my bigger characters. All those things. And then after we've done that really strong curve of 1, 2, 3, 4, we want to just be playing big bodies. And I think that's something that I kind of lost sight of in this set, but like I say, Voidric's done a brilliant job of showing us that it's viable. After you've done that curve, the day that Kiwi worked this, we just played big characters. You know, we played Gantu, we played Robin Hood, we just played like Chi and Pose at some points. You know, we just played a giant body each turn because we didn't have the ability to do what Amber Steel Aggro does, where they can double spell and play like a Daisy Nala or like Lady and Nala every turn. No, what we want to do is just put a big body on the board every turn, say deal with that. If you can't deal with that, then we're probably going to win the game. And you can do that very well in this set because they printed a lot of big bodies, and there are cards that are coming in and out. Just before this video, I was like testing Scuttle out, and I don't know if Scuttle is a 5-drop 5/5 of ward. Don't know if it fits in perfectly yet, but with the deck, you know, just there's loads of big bodies, and Goliath really has changed the game. As I say, you've got this classic line. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4 on the play, on the draw. Do that as much as you know, that works fine. Some of the Sapphire matchups and some of the Amethyst matchups, maybe you want to go for a bit more board presence rather than the ward aggro line. But, you know, you'll feel it out the more you play, and we'll cover a few of those matchups as well. But after that, you just want to be playing these big bodies. And we've included some 6-drops, which was something we never really did in Kiwi before. Jafar was always a card that was tested, but now with Ichabod Crane, the reason why we can put these 6-drops in is because when he is banished, we actually get to ramp a bit. We get to ramp 1 ink, which means that we're just close to playing those 6-drops. And then you can do these amazing curves where you do 1, 2, 3, 4. They take out an Ichabod Crane, ramps you to 5, you ink, then you play a Goliath, and that will just mean that your hand refills. It's one thing I've noticed as well playing this is don't fear that you're going to refill your opponent's hand. It doesn't matter too much. You kind of just want to refill yours and put more stuff on the board every turn going forward. But it's really that simple. That's kind of the deck in general. It can be a bit solitary sometimes. It can be a bit like you're just doing your thing. Sometimes if they're too far ahead, you might have to do your own thing and, you know, figure out how to remove some of their stuff for the board and gain some lore on that turn. But altogether, yeah, it feels exactly like it did. It feels like a bit more of a ramp. Kiwi, we're using a bit more of the Sapphire tools in here, which is really awesome. But matchup wise, you know, I'll go for each matchup. We'll start with Purple Steel. Probably, again, sadly, the reason why a lot of these sort of aggro decks and a lot of decks really in the format, I'm not going to suggest aggro decks. I think things like racers and loads of stuff just pretty much doesn't exist is because there is such a strong mid-range choice. That's one of the most popular decks. It's fairly affordable for what it is. Just kind of has a really strong game into anything that's trying to do something like what Kiwi's doing, and I say like racers gets put down as well, and dogs always has a very rough time into it. But for ourselves, you know, all we're aiming to do is they will just curve their 1, 2, 3 like they do every game, and we want to do the same. Just curve one on the plate, you know, curve our 1, 2, 3. If we can sing a strength early onto their 4-drop, that's great. If not, if we can ward up our what's it called? Sorry, our bodyguard on 4, that's also great. If they're not able to play something like Lexington, say on turn 3, they play what's it called, like the White Rose or Pete or anything that's a 3/3. You have so much value from that Headless Horseman, because what will happen is they will have to require 2 characters to remove it, and both those 2 characters will get removed as well. Unlike before with Pluto, where they would just run their 1-drop in and then take it out with something else. Now it's like, no, you're going to have to trade your 2 and your 3, and then you won't even be able to take the Alice out afterwards. You've just taken out a 4/4 bodyguard vanilla type thing. So you can just do some great, crazy things like that. If they're ever able to play like a Lexington down, you can just strength a Lexington, full quest, and again, you'd be leaving them with a 1-drop and a 2-drop, and for them to get to your board, they're going to have to take out this 4/4, which may not have ward at this point because your Alice would have sung the Strength of the Raging Fire, but I'm not going to say that's too bad of a situation for you. The next turn you can give it ward, and just you're going to be presenting so much lore and just being so far ahead it won't matter anyway. On the draw, you know, it's fairly rough. It's like like I say, it's one of your bad matchups. It's going to be rough. We still go for a strong curve out. You can either Pete and sing Strength if that will maybe get you some way into the game. Maybe play a Lexington. The body is huge. You know, usually 2-for-1s. You might take out like a Genie, and then it will take something else to take it out. Maybe they run their Captain Hook into it, and you know you got 2-for-1 of that. And they didn't get as much lore. You know, you're setting them back on lore. And we can also do all the classic lines that we did with Kiwi, where maybe on turn 4. You do play a 3-drop and a 1-drop just to keep building the board to go a bit wider every turn. And that's just things you're going to have to do. Like I say, I'd prefer to be playing that bodyguard on turn 4, but sometimes you have to figure it out and find a way to do it. And creating double threats, you know, maybe you play a 1-drop, 2-drop, 2-drop and a 1-drop, and then you go a 3-drop and a 1-drop, and then you dock or whatever, or maybe you'll turn 5 as Alice plus dock. You know, just trying to create a wider board, so when you start questing, you're going to be getting more lore than them, and they're going to have to be chasing you. And then, again, using the ward and bodyguard scenario to make them do very awkward trades, maybe a nice Strength of Raging Fire, maybe even building a board up so big enough that you can play Jafar and just full quest and win the game. But on the draw, yeah, it will feel a little bit rougher, but as long as they're not, if they've got the base of the optimal curve, it's going to be pretty much game. But, you know, maybe they missed their 2-drop, maybe their 2-drop is a 1-drop, maybe their 3-drop is not a good 3-drop, and you can play Lexington and get a nice trade. All of those things in there. Sometimes as well, you can just ramp to that Goliath with the Ichabod Crane, and then just start playing more threats and just basically flipping the tempo on yourself. You know, if you play Goliath into Jafar, it just creates these really awkward board states, because the majority of their deck is 1 to 4 cost, and dealing 7 strength is very rough for them to try and achieve. So yeah, it is kind of winnable, but on the play, you just definitely want to curve out, like I've been mentioning, and sing a strength if you get one, and just try and win off the aggro. Keep playing those big bombs every turn. You know, Gantus, even presenting a Gantu on the board sometimes can be rough. It's almost like a lightning rod. They will have to remove the Gantu before they deal with anything else on the board. Jafar can be just so powerful in that matchup as well. And I'd cover the Ruby Amethyst matchup. It's very much the same. There's just no Strength of Raging Fire. Like Scared. The only thing I'd worry about is if they play like a Lumineer or a Madam Mim Skater and then try and get some better trades. You know, maybe they have a 3-1 Tinkerbell on board. Just think, right, if I turn this Headless Horseman and use it as my only bodyguard protection, if they play Madam Mim, Lumineer, whatever, then they have a very good trade of like a 1-drop into a 4-drop. But just be thinking about those things. Every build's different. Their lists aren't very concrete right now. But I will say on the play, if you just curve out the classic way that I've been keep mentioning, you should be fine into that matchup and just aggro them out. On the draw as well, a well-timed strength. They don't have access to cards like Strength or Rage of Fire. It's pretty great. Using the wards to mean that what's it called? Headless Horseman has no abilities as well. Just things like that. You know, just keep thinking of the creative ways that you can do things. You know, if you manage to get the Jafar down, Alice ward it up, you can just be in a really, really good spot. Using your Captain Hook to take out their things like their 2-drop Diablos, because that's the biggest lore gainer for them. They do have Genies, Headless Horsemen, they all quest for 2, but playing 2, questing for 2, and it's a 3-3 is pretty good for them. Sometimes they double spell it. You know, using your Captain Hook just to deal with that is pretty good. Just all of those things. And as well, I think you could probably go back and look at my older Kiwi videos. We are trying to cheese this Alice give ward to a bodyguard thing. You know, Headless Horseman or Pluto doesn't matter anymore at this point, so Headless Horseman's more optimal. But if you have any ways to get their board to be a bit smaller, maybe they have a Tinkerbell 3-1 and you've played a Mulan, just quest with it, because if they take the trade, and it makes their board smaller, it makes the bodyguard harder for them to deal with. So just do that, curve out into your big drops. Goliath kind of fuels you to play more big characters every turn. It just refill. It's like a dock. It's so awesome. So that's probably the biggest drop that you can put on the board. But, you know, any of these other things, and, you know, even just double spelling like Alice plus a 2-drop is really good as well. You know, Fergus give wards to like playing Nala plus Fergus is like, wow, you've just presented 5 lore on the board. It doesn't matter if they deal with it after it's turned sideways, but you've just gained 5 lore and made it very awkward for them, and they have to remove your stuff because it has ward. And, you know, all of these awesome things. You know, it's the classic Kiwi like it's always been. Just trying to create these amazing board states. And the other matchups I'll cover into is like dogs, like I say. Dogs, you kind of at the earlier starts, you know, put your Captain Hook down just to say if you turn sideways, I'll probably take a trade on you. Maybe throw some Mulans as well, so if they're playing X4s, you can take it out, but they tend to focus on playing lady cards. Although that's fine, maybe get a Nala or an Alice down and just get them questing just to get a bit of lore to begin with. anticipate the Under the Sea. When you're anticipating it, focus in on these bigger characters. And by that, I actually generally mean like things like Headless Horseman, John Silver, getting things that aren't going to get under the seed and then just fight back and hit the board, or keep turning everything sideways. Gantu is a nightmare for them, I think. They don't really have an answer for that. It's a huge, gigantic body, and it also just quests for 4, so they turn it sideways, and they have to do some weird tramp stuff to remove it. You can tend to be on the play just quicker than them if they're going to Chromicon you, and on the draw you might need to remove a few bits, but besides that, you know, you can just have something like, hey, I'm going to have this Nala quest thing, and unless you hit into it and exert your things, nothing's going to happen, and it's just going to keep questing for games. So you can do fun things like that. I don't feel that matchup's too bad. You just have to constantly anticipate the Under the Sea. And the last one as well, I'm just going to cover like Sapphire in general, because as I say, we're still learning with this deck, we're still building with it. I don't want this to be the concrete matchup guide for Kiwi. This is just a very good way to get you playing if you're enjoying the deck and you've seen me posting about it and you want to start playing the game. But the Sapphire matchups in general is you get to just be the full aggro degenerate deck again, you know, doing mad openers like 1-drop into Nala, Alice, into like maybe another Alice, Warder, Gantu, full quest, just go really fast. Remember, the thing with the Prince Philip combo is it's very good, it's not overly consistent. It takes a few bits and pieces to find it, and on top of that they still need to ramp and play a curve out, so you know, altogether it's pretty winnable matchup. On the draw, if they're able to do, it doesn't even matter. So also for the Sapphire Steel, you know, you're able to quicken them on the play. Definitely if they're going to ramp into Tinkerbell or Spooky Sight or whatever it is, you'll just be able to present so much lore. And then if they Spooky Sight you, like I said, the deck's got expensive stuff you can put on the board like Goliath. If they play their Goliath, you can take advantage of that. But you know, just be really quick on the play. Definitely on the draw, you know, if they're able to ramp into setting up a strong board state, that can be kind of rough. But you know, if they ramp on 2 into Cinderella into Big Tinkerbell, or ramp on 2 into Cinderella into Prince John or John Silver, these things can be rough. John Silver's not that rough for you actually because you have all your ward. I meant, sorry, like Prince Philip into setting up MMS. But just keep in mind all those things, that's what they're going to be doing. It's the same with the Under the Sea thing. If you know it's coming, you can maybe hold back cards. You got things like Pete as well. Maybe play Pete at the optimal time, because we do have the ability, if we've got an Alice, Pluto, Alice, Nala, and something else, like maybe another 2 quester on the board. Questing, you know, we're gaining like 10 lore. We can probably flip it and win it in 2 turns anyway. And then if not, no, when we stop at about 18 lore, we just top deck a Gantu and win the game. And that is how the deck's always worked, and that's how the deck can still work. It's very, very viable to be doing all those things. So generally your Sapphire matchups, you get to play the deck the way I'd like to play it, which is just fully aggro mode. The Amethyst matchups, we have a few things in there to fight the board, Captain Hook, Lexington, and then get your lore when you can, warding up your bodyguards as usual, and just playing bigger characters. A lot of these Amethyst decks, besides Demono, they don't really play bigger characters, and to be honest with you, most of your stuff sideways anyway. When they play Demono, all you really get out of that is 3 cards in hand. So that's pretty useful for you. So yeah, it's all around just feel like quite a strong deck. And I'll go through like a couple mulligans, because I think, you know, pretty much every matchup you'll be mulliganing the same. And if I'd say if I was on the play here, what I really want is that curve. Nala's a pretty nice opener. Remember, we only have 8 1-drops and 8 2-drops really that we can play optimally. You know, there we go, we've got the hooks and the Mulans, and then we've got Ichabod Crane and Nalas, and there's quite a handful of 3-drops as well, so we can do the purple steel thing of just not really bothering too much about keeping a 3-drop, hoping we draw one, because sorry, we don't have to hold 3-drops, because the likely chances we send back 3-drops and we still get them. And like I say here, if you're on the play, definitely absolutely fine hand here. I'd probably get rid of one of these Plutos, go into the Nala, then get into the Alice, ward up Headless Horseman, ward up Pluto, John Silver, anything, and would probably have won the game before there. And maybe I'll turn 5 as Nala plus John Silver, and we're just in these amazing spots where everything's got, like, the majority of stuff has ward, it quests for a high amount, and we're also saying things like your opponent can't challenge, you know, just a pretty optimal hand there. But if we're going on the draw, I think I'd look for something like this. Again, Ichabod Crane is not the best to be on the draw. He has no strength at all. But the thing is, once he is being removed, he will ramp you into your bigger stuff that you can use and play. So sometimes you might even want to quest and take your 2 lore ramp. Also, with that, you're still playing on curve. You're still setting up things for like Strength of the Raging Fire. So I'll probably send that back. And to be honest with you, again, that not really doesn't look like a bad hand. If it was an aggressive deck, you know, you could go for the Captain Hook into one of your 2 drops into Alice Pluto and sing this Strength of the Raging Fire. Remember, Alice does have ward herself, so she kind of is protected and allow you to sing this Strength of the Raging Fire. Or you can ink the hook, play the Mulan, discard one of these depending on what you want. If you want to be ramping into bigger things, you can base Ichabod or Crane. If it's a Sapphire matchup, you just want to be quick, you can keep this Nala and just play the Nala out. But altogether, like I say, the deck is very simple. You just look for those curves and then you play the strongest curve out that you have in your hand. You look at your hand and say, what is the strongest curve that I can play? The only way I could say to make it a bit more complex is say this was on the draw and you're against a very aggressive deck. You could maybe keep the Mulan and the hook, discard the Ichabod Crane, try and triple one them on 2, or maybe your turn 3, maybe you discard something else, maybe even the Alice, and then on 3 you play a hook, you play one of the 1-drops and another 2-drop, and you're just like double spelling every turn to keep going wider on them. You can do all those fun things, but at its core, really just to get you going is just play those simple curves out of 1, 2, 3. On the draw here, you've got Strength of the Raging Fire. You may be able to flip the tempo back in your favor. And the great thing about Alice is that if they strength, their enemy strength in a 1 or a 2-drop, a Nala or your Captain Hook that was probably going to die anyway. Whereas your Alice gets to do it, and then Pluto can protect for the bodyguard. So altogether, it's very much the same deck it was before. We have some cool things where you can use these 6-drops and the more expensive things. Ichabod Crane gives us the ramp. And also on top of that as well, it might just be able to protect your hand size. It's like, well, he was banished this turn, so I don't need to ink this turn, so I can keep these cards in my hand. You can do all those fun things. But yeah, really to get you going, there's just a few points on it. Really liked all the comments that were like supportive and like different ideas for the deck. So anything you want to say, please let me know and I will test it. I'm pretty sure I will test it.